The show focused on delivering beneficial information on everything to do with products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
Welcome back to Key Pacific's Talk About Strata. Sterling Fox with you, along with Veronica Franco from Clark Wilson in Vancouver and Tony Gioventu from the Condominium Homeowners Association of British Columbia and the Vancouver Province condo columnist for many, many, many columns, well over 500 columns and counting. 10 years of writing for the Vancouver Province. Well, now we're having an interesting, albeit somewhat somber, discussion about the financial realities, or some of them, involved with strata living. We've talked about strata fees and special levies and fines, and Veronica, you've walked us through a lot of this minefield of, and it's a minefield only if you don't know it's there. And I get the feeling that a lot of people, and you use the adjective carefree a few minutes ago, and that's the appeal. I mean, the people who are listening to this program either are strata owners themselves or are seriously considering the lifestyle and the big move. Out of the big house in the burbs, maybe downtown, to some cool place with a fantastic ocean view and no ladders to climb, and various other considerations. So it's an attractive lifestyle. It has tremendous appeal, but it is not without its pitfalls, and that's what this program has been about in terms, Tony, as you've described it. Do your homework, know what you're getting into, and for goodness sake, be prepared for it. It's the ill-preparedness that causes a lot of the issues we're talking about, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and you know, we look often at the problems really show up when somebody buys or sells a strata lot. That's when there's a lot of confusion. What was my storage locker? What's my parking space? Who did these alterations? Who's responsible for them in the future? It's there's been a casualness about the management of the strata's facilities up until there's a point of a sale, and it's at the point of the sale that a whole bunch of the warts start to show up on the relationships between the parties. Fix them before you get there. Makes sales easier, makes conveyances easier, and it just overall makes life living in a strata that much easier. Well,
and Veronica, you're the lawyer here. You're the one that essentially should be the guide to the prospective owner or seller in terms of expediting all of this, making the wheels turn smoothly. So where's the big mistake usually made, particularly I'm thinking on the part of the buyer? Where do they get their biggest surprises? Hey, wait a minute, nobody told me about this. What's this, usually?
I often hear bylaws. No one told me it was in the bylaws. And I don't know if they don't read the bylaws, because often you'll see in their contracts of purchase and sale that they have requested the bylaws. I have heard everything from my realtor didn't tell me. My realtor was supposed to read the bylaws and didn't tell me that this was in the bylaws, to I never received the bylaws, to the bylaws must have gotten lost in the mail, or
the dog ate
my bylaws.
Right.
But that's a really important document. It gives you a feel for what the Strata Corporation is about and what kind of issues it's had. Because generally speaking, a bylaw gets created in reaction to an issue the building has had. So if there is a limit on rentals, it may be because they had problems with tenants or perceived a problem with tenants. If there is a bylaw that relates to, that restrict or prohibits pets altogether, again, there may have been problems with pet owners, and the Strata Corporation decided that they didn't want to have pet owners, irresponsible pet owners, and decided to ban them altogether. So those bylaws really give you a feel for what things are. The other thing is all the finance side of things.
Well, I was just going to ask, how, at what point in the conversation that you're hopefully having to and educate yourself on this potential acquisition, do you not have the presence of mind to ask if there are outstanding debts on this apartment with the fantastic ocean view that I want to buy and change my life into? Is that not a reasonable question to ask? Is there any money owing on this? Are there any financial things lurking in the shadows that I should know about as the new owner? Tony, do people not ask that question?
We have a requirement to be able to transfer title, convey title. Actually, it's the physical conveyance from owner to owner in British Columbia is going to require a payment certificate. So the payment certificate is issued by the Strata Corporation, and that payment certificate it will declare whether there's any monies owing.
Okay.
Unpaid strata fees, fines or penalties, those types of costs associated with the transaction of the business of the Strata Corporation. So it may be possible to collect the unpaid fees, the special levies. It might be quite easy, rather than go to a court proceeding, if the unit's about to sell, to get an assurance from an undertaking from the lawyers representing the sellers that they're going to simply pay the Strata Corporation when the transaction takes place.
Okay.
It becomes an undertaking. That's a fairly routine process.
Sure, you'd think so.
Right? Or there may be a condition where the form itself is actually physically withheld until the other fees and penalties are paid, if there's the ability to be able to do that. So there are certain things that happen that are going to be reported, trapped, and collected basically in the information of the Form F. Sellers need to be aware of Form Fs as much as buyers, because as a seller, I need to know if there's anything on my account when I'm selling my unit so that I can either dispute it, or it may be significant enough that I may want to dispute it. I may want to pay that amount of money into the courts to dispute it, or I may want to deal with it from a legal perspective immediately. It may also be an incorrect charge on my account that I want to challenge and get it resolved. So from a seller's perspective, when you're selling your unit, the moment you have an agreement for sale or when you're ready to sell it, you may want to request a Form F.
What's a Form F, Veronica, in legal terms?
That's the certificate of payment that the Strata Corporation is requested.
Okay.
From at the time of a conveyance.
Okay.
One of the provisos with respect to Form Fs or certificates of payments is if there is a foreclosure, like a bank foreclosure that takes place, they don't need a Form F to convey the property to the new buyer.
Okay.
So in that transaction, the Strata Corporation, if they don't have a lien on title, they could lose out on the outstanding strata fees or special levies that are due and owing.
We started this conversation almost an hour ago talking about an uptick in this whole court order for sale proceedings right across British Columbia, noticeably so in 2012. It seems, though, as we near the end of and we're talking about these quarter, it seems that as a buyer, particularly for an existing condo rather than a new one, it would be a cleaner deal to come in and buy something that's been foreclosed upon, because all the paperwork will have very cleanly been completely done up and signed off on, because everybody wants to get paid before you get the key to the front door, right?
Yes, that's true. But the problem with a foreclosure is it's a whereas as is sale. So sometimes owners are going into it even more, buyers are going into it even more blindly than a person who is not foreclosing.
Oh, okay.
So when it's not a foreclosure. So it's not necessarily cleaner. It might be cleaner from a financial net zero sum point of view,
okay,
but not from the Strata Corporation as a whole and its management point of view.
Well, and frequently with foreclosures, you won't have had the opportunity to scrutinize the Strata Corporation's financial records and the minutes and all of the documentation prior to. You may not be aware what you're getting into fully.
Oh.
So the foreclosure may have seemed like a good idea on the upside, buying the foreclosure, but the result is you may have purchased yourself a number of liabilities you're not aware of.
Yeah, but even as a buyer, though, caveat emptor, my legal friend, is it still applies across the board. If you're buying a foreclosure, you still should be doing exactly the same due diligence that if you're buying a brand new building just put up yesterday.
Absolutely, but I think a lot of people go into it thinking it's a great deal, I'm going to make money, not thinking about the long-term consequences.
There's one little warning about Form Fs, the payment certificate. It basically, you get the payment certificate that says there's no money owing. That means there are no debts against this account with respect to the Strata Corporation. But there are two different types of issues that you cannot include with the Form F. You cannot include damages caused by you or your tenants. to the Strata Corporation's common assets, and you cannot include insurance deductibles. So if my barbecue catches fire and burns the siding on my townhouse unit and it costs $800 to repair it, the Strata Corporation can't include the damages on the Form F. And likewise, if something's happened in my unit causing a flood and I've been found to be responsible for the $10,000 insurance deductible, we can't include that amount on a Form F payment certificate as well. We can't collect them through a conveyance. We need to proactively look at damages and insurance deductibles because we have a very short limitation period on those and a short window. The Strata Corporation needs to proactively collect those matters.
Lots more information on this topic and anything else related to strata living at the website of the Condominium Homeowners Association of British Columbia, choa.bc.ca. Tony Gioventu and Veronica Franco. Nice to see you again. Thanks so much for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Good night.